Tales of the Unexpected stands as a seminal anthology TV series that captured its audiences from 1979 to 1988. While not on the air long, it made a huge impact for its twists and intriguing narratives. The series offered a unique blend of suspense, mystery, dark humor, and a little bit of horror. Adapted primarily but not exclusively from the short stories of renowned author Roald Dahl, Tales of the Unexpected carved out a nice niche in the pantheon of classic TV anthologies. Again, while this wasn't a strictly horror-centric show, it does feature some really creepy episodes, including this one, which I personally and a lot of other people consider this maybe one of the most chilling episodes in TV history. And please be sure to stick around to the end of the video because, this episode is so crazy and shocking. I cannot believe that it aired, particularly in Britain. The inception of Tales from the Unexpected can be traced back, as I mentioned earlier, to the literary prowess of Roald Dahl. Dahl was known for his children's books such as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Witches, and many others. The thing about Dahl is he never talked down to his children readers, and his work could be quite dark and even brutal. In other words, just because you're a child doesn't mean you're shielded from danger. This concept isn't new to Dahl. In fact, it can be traced back to dark folk tales and early written fairy tales, which were pretty intense for kids because these were meant to teach a moral lesson, which I think is a perfect setup for this episode, which I'm going to cover, called The Flypaper. Based on a short story by Elizabeth Taylor. No, not that Elizabeth Taylor. The episode opens on a bleak note as police are scouring a small town for a missing 12-year-old girl. We pivot over to another young girl named Sylvia, and we see her being scolded by a female piano teacher, and just to make things more miserable for the kid, she moments later praises another pupil right in front of her. If that wasn't bad enough, on her way home, she is stalked by this creepy man. It seems like everywhere she tries to go, he's always there. We see Sylvia does make it home, but man, this girl cannot catch a break. Her grandmother slash caregiver is loudly and openly talking bad about Sylvia and her deceased mother to a local priest. Once her and grandma are alone, she is beyond terrified and tries to talk to her grandmother about this stalker, but she is swiftly ignored. The next day, after being picked on by her classmates, Sylvia gets on a bus, and while she's riding along, just minding her own business, that same exact man that's been stalking her is right there on the bus. Of course, this makes Sylvia extremely uncomfortable, and the more she tries to just simply ignore him, the louder and more bizarre acting he gets. So much so that another passenger notices and even says something to the man. The narrative unfolds with a growing sense of dread as Sylvia becomes increasingly ensnared in this man's psychological trap, much like the insect caught on Flypaper. So I made it a point not to spoil the ending for the time being. I will give you spoiler warnings because this is an episode very difficult to talk about without talking about the finale. But it's amazing, and I really can't say where you can see it, but if you just Google search it, it's really easy to watch, and you can watch it for free. So if you haven't seen it, this would be a great time to pause the video, check it out, or I also included timestamps in the description so y'all can skip any spoilers. So let's get into it. So holy crap, this episode really has a palpable sense of dread and melancholy. There's this really interesting and depressing through line of adults in Sylvia's life failing her at every point of the story, specifically the women in her life. Right away, the piano teacher is really getting on her case very brutally, in my opinion, then pits her against another female student, which is just awful and cannot really be a great teaching tool. The grandmother not only openly dislikes Sylvia, but she will freely talk about her and her dead mother to basically strangers, right in earshot. Worse yet, when Sylvia tries desperately to get her grandmother to believe her about her stalker, she is quickly dismissed. And it's so frustrating because at every turn, this really could have been avoided had these adults in her life not been so careless. So there's another theme of female victimhood and women helping and believing other women. Grandma literally is at the extreme end of this and does not believe Sylvia, and she delivers such a chilling foreshadowing line.
Well, she does seem to me to be always such a victim, you know.
Then we meet the lady on the bus, and from here on out, I'm going to get into spoiler territory. So the woman on the bus seems to be the only adult in Sylvia's life that is not only believing her, but she is actively taking steps to rectify the situation. Her and Sylvia get off on the bus to this woman's house to phone the police. And for Sylvia, this is her saving grace. This is the only person so far that is really trying to help. However, this backfires when in the shocking finale, we see that while Sylvia feels safe and comfortable in this grandmotherly person's home, in walks in the stalker, and it's very clear that the two are in cahoots and that Sylvia is going to end up just like the other missing girls in the area. Holy crap, this is so messed up. It's really messed up because it not only abuses this sense of trust with another adult, but I think more to the point of this video and its themes, this is a older woman and she seems like very nurturing, something that clearly Sylvia doesn't have in her life. And the end result is she is trapped and we never see exactly what her fate is. And I think that's way more scary because we can just imagine like what the messed up stuff she's gonna go through. Like, it's awful. Children's media warning kids on the subject of talking to strangers is actually a very old tradition and one that feels ever present with the 24-hour news cycle and the internet. Yet shorts like the Flypaper are terrifying because they're realistic. The boogeyman isn't some snarling monster. It can be a friendly grandmother type offering you up to some creepy older man. To modern eyes, this isn't that graphic or what I would say even traditionally scary. However, children in danger, especially to the extreme, is always going to be upsetting for a lot of people. Now, mix in this bleak and somber atmosphere and an unbelievably bleak finale, and you have one of the most devastating episodes in TV history. Now, I never saw this as a child, so I suspect it doesn't have the same kind of impact for me, but reading online, it was interesting hearing, particularly from British kids, and how much this was their specific kinder trauma. And damn, even as an adult, I find this so unsettling. Again, a lot of what happens is just left up to your imagination, which is all the more chilling. So there's some other really great episodes in this series, so if you like this video, please let me know. I would love to do another episode in particular called The Landlady. It's another one that is pretty scary. I hope you all enjoyed that video. If you saw this as a kid, please let me know in the comments. And while you're hanging out with me, please check out some of these other videos and consider subscribing. I upload at least one new video per week, and I'll see y'all in the next one.